He had a trio of goals in the national championship game after having only one prior in the NCAA tournament. Really came to life when it mattered most for Virginia. But the Hoos will see themselves behind Airforce early as Chris Bardak, a sophomore out of Smithtown, New York, will pour in the face-off department, such a specialist. Sawstad, and we talked so much about Schellenberger, the forward for Virginia, expected to lead the way. But it is Airforce leading the way right now. A third goal for the Falcons, and this one coming from Krause, who, as I mentioned, was one of the leaders in conference. And out of that grouping, this Airforce team, easy to see why, with what you've witnessed here in the first. Picked alongside Utah to perhaps be at the top of the class. Well, top of the scoring sheet on the young season. That was outshot by a total of 12-9 in that opening period by Airforce. Another noticeable area in which Airforce had excelled was the face-off department. But Virginia flipping the page to quarter number 2 and putting together a couple of quick goals in the when the first period came to a close. Virginia has owned possession for what seems the entire opening day of February. Back in 2020, upended ACC foe Duke, and now back in front of ACC foe Virginia. And who would it be but Dodd? Early February meeting with Virginia and puts the Academy back on top at 4-3. Make it 5 as back-to-back goals from Dodd. Boy, really sensing just how much Dodd enjoys playing against these ACC opponents. 16 shots for Airforce, 13 for UVA. Here comes the 14th, and it is good enough to find the back of the cage as Ware now joins the group of Virginia Cavaliers, having scored on the early. Trying to keep up with them as sides will be flipped here for Airforce, coming from multiple locations, in the same true for Virginia. And here is Schellenberger's first of the year. Well, he had a couple of assists coming into this effort. His father, Scott, a golfer at Marshall. Credits his dad with so many reps along the way, helping him become so good. And in close proximity, like you saw there a moment ago. A man who they talk about picking up a stick the first year of his life. Making an impact here, and he's not the only one. Virginia with another. Who's now beginning to pour them in regularly as Peyton Cormier gets involved. Them to the 2019 and 2021 titles. Very noticeable, the strides that this Virginia team makes, especially the way they performed in defensive posture last year. Right now the focus on the offense, and the offensive more. Told you he came in looking for 45 points. Champion Cavaliers here on the ACC Network. The back Airforce just into UVA before the ground ball is eventually picked up by Virginia. Such a strong area for UVA, not only a season ago, but regularly. Here, the strength of Virginia on display again. As the goal for Virginia, giving the first real separation to UVA at 8-5, and we talked about what LaSalle had done in the face-off department a moment ago. Now pass straight picked over the middle by Kastner. And then Virginia with Connor controlling for a moment, and he'll be greeted by the combo of Moore and Schellenberger. Those 6 goals for Virginia, building a 4-point advantage, and it'll shrink to 3 as it wide. 5 seconds to work with. And a late first half goal, the exclamation point on the quarter at least. A second goal for LaSalle, and Virginia to double digits to fill the shoes of Alex Rode, who was a part of that Virginia championship team from a year ago. fact, had the save in the national championship game's closing seconds. Testing Rose, who has accumulated those 10 saves while seeing Virginia pour in 10 goals, make it 11, and it's number 10 who gets the job done for UVA. Celebrate. Continuation allowed as the flag is down. Solid scoop in the end. Gonna be guess who? Xander Dick. One of the 4 faceoffs in the first period. Schellenberger, little quick feed into the stick of Cormier. Out top, what a factor he's been today, both as a scorer and as a distributor for this Virginia attack. Set the bar very high for himself and this team a year ago. Living up to it in the second and third quarters particularly now. The Rocky Point product looking on as it's Schellenberger who provides the latest of the Virginia goals. Schellenberger a couple of goals now, just 5 shots for Schellenberger weighing his options. You have to tip your cap to the delay provided by this Airforce quarters. Feeds behind to Schellenberger. And able to go low and bounce another in as Cormier. He does have 3/3 for the combo of Cormier and Dixon. Pair of goals for both Schellenberger and LaSala. And here's another UVA goal. This one going to be scored by 10th win, by the way, in 27 face-offs for Airforce. The one secured just a moment ago. No goal here, though, at least not initially. Turned away at first glance. Surprise, Coach Lars Tiffany's teams having led the nation in ground balls for 7 straight years, dating back to his 2015 and 2016 campaigns as a coach at Brown. Well, this one off the ground and into the back of the cage. As Airforce having put together a notice for Virginia today. Number of new faces off the bench making their presence known. Here's Virginia on the attack. The finish just as true. And it's the senior out of the. But off the bench for Virginia today, 15 different performers. Airforce not going quietly here. 48 Virginia shots, 2 shy of 50 on the day, this Who's squad. This goal going to come from Airforce is Dodd. Well placed. And on the run, here comes Weyer, has a goal already today. The long stick gives it up, close proximity, true finish. There is Tucker Mullen. Virginia team that leads at 2010, and we got a new keeper on the Airforce side of things. Get to that in a moment. First things first, Airforce continuing to inch closer. And who else? Roselle in goal for Virginia after a good start to the career of Nunes. We will end the day with 8 saves alongside the 11 goals that the Airforce Academy's put together. Virginia keeping the pressure applied. Will Corey. The final seconds tick off the game clock. On a day when the Who's were in double digits, not only in goals, but in the number of different scorers to contribute. A couple of freshmen scoring for the very first time, making their marks on this program. Mullen getting the job done in that department. Schutz, who started all the scoring, 11 win over the Airforce Academy. Virginia by 10, a 1-0 start to the 93rd season in the history of the program. Airforce again back in action on the road at Denver, 12 Mountain Time on the 12th. And for Virginia, they'll welcome High Point in 3 p.m. Eastern, of course, on the 13th of February after a solid start to the season for Lars Tiffany and his crew. On a day when Virginia posts a 51 shot total with 35 of them on goal, Virginia scores 10 in the second, 7 in the third, and 4 more in the closing period to pick up a 21-11.